Right. Kieran's here, Aaron's here. Are you guys ready or did you need a minute?
Nope, I'm here. I'm ready to go.
Good to go.
I will say, yeah, we can go ahead and get started, but I'll just say I know a lot of you EU people are up late and we already talked about trying to get a better time for you guys. So I'm going to talk to Aaron about having another town hall pretty soon and at a better time for you guys. So we can cover more of the EU. So I know you guys are up late that are here, and this will be recorded for whoever has to dip out and leave. But yeah, we'll work on getting you guys a town hall better time for you guys. But yeah, exciting day. Registrations are open. Hope everyone's already gotten registered. And yeah, we had a lot of questions submitted for this town hall, so we can go ahead and start going through them. We'll have a Q&A session at the end if you guys want to come up and ask questions. But there is a lot of questions, so we'll see how much time we have. But yeah, let's get started. One of these first questions was regarding our Samsung partnership. They said congrats, and since Gaming Hub is on Samsung TVs, uses GeForce Now, is it safe to assume Illuvium will be playable through GeForce Now? Is this planned for launch?
It's definitely not planned for launch, but we are in discussion with NVIDIA, and yeah, we're working through the process. I can't talk too much more on that one.
Okay. All right.
It's exciting. Put it that way.
Nice. All right, well, let's move into that was just one of the first ones on partnership. So we'll start with Arena here. I would like to know if there's going to be any rewards for leveling up or ranking up in game. Also, will there be any fixes to UI in game? This is not a third question. Okay, yeah, so he's just wondering if there will be rewards for leveling up and ranking in game.
So we haven't planned anything yet, but it's definitely a potential in the future.
Okay. Rate the current state of your PvP experience in relation to your goals for it.
Okay. Are we talking about just how good we feel the game is at the moment, or?
Yeah, compared to where you want it to be, I guess.
Yep. I would say that there's still a little ways to go before it's where we want it to be, but I think that that is pretty understandable for it being not quite yet into the public beta. Because remember, even after the public beta begins, we'll be adding and improving things all the time with it. There's probably a little bit more to do with onboarding, user interface, and a couple little systems that we could make a bit more intuitive. I think that the important thing to remember, though, is with Ascendant mode, it is meant to be like a card game. We're doing it in a different package, right? Instead of it being just cards on the screen, we show it as, an auto battler, but it needs to have enough complexity to get those dedicated people, really, really into it. And that tends to be the case with most competitive card games, is that there needs to be a learning curve there that rewards you for going in deeper and deeper into it. But we absolutely need to continue working on making it easier for new people starting out in the game. The other thing that I think people forget is that those that play in the overworld will effectively be getting like a tutorial kind of for free as they play through it. They'll be playing in the overworld with encounters, and part of that is that they will learn what each of the units does. They'll learn how the battles unfold, and when they go over into Ascendant mode, they'll be able to take that knowledge with them. Plus, we have the tutorial, which will keep on improving. So overall, it's not where we want it to be, but I don't think anyone's panicking about it at the moment. Once it goes live, I think that it will be fine. And in the background, we've got other modes coming out that will be meant to have less less of a steep learning curve, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, already, like, the new tutorial, I think I've seen a lot of people, they learned a lot, even though they've been in the newer one that people haven't tested, played it through. Yeah, I think it helps a lot with that learning curve.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that there've been plenty of games. I remember TFT got a tutorial about 3 years after creation of the game, so we're a little bit ahead of the curve there. I think it's important to remember that a lot of people that come from that genre will find it a lot easier than people that don't, and it's really about trying to level the playing field and allow people who play the other parts of the game like Overworld to be able to understand how things work inside of our ecosystem. And once they get something that can ground them, like this is how frost characters work, or this is the way to enhance your ranger, that sort of thing, that will give them some sort of underpinning where they can then use that to go forward and branch out and get better at the game. So it's definitely something that will get better with time, but there's definitely things that we need to improve as well.
Yeah, well, so that kind of leads into this one. You kind of talked about it, but they're asking about the new 8-player mode. So what if the planned 8-player free for all mode for Arena turns out to be way more popular than the current Ascendant mode? Would you then make it the official competitive mode?
Yeah, that's actually a funny one because we were talking about that when we were first discussing having that 8-player mode. What we think the player behavior is going to be like? Will more people gravitate towards the 8-player casual mode, and when I say casual, I mean you play TFT, uh, it's still competitive, right? You're competing against 7 other players. You're trying to come first. There's always that competitive aspect to a card game. But uh, if both modes are going to have a pay to win, if you will, and a sort of free to play mode. And so it doesn't matter if you want to be more of that casual player. There'll be something for you in the 1v1 mode. If you want to be more competitive and you want to bring in, go up and buy a whole bunch of really powerful Illuvials off the Illuvidex or go and catch them in the overworld, then you're able to go into the Leviathan mode, and obviously you're going to have an advantage there. That will be the same thing across both modes, the 1v1 and the 8-player.
I'm looking forward to testing it. Tested it.
So am I.
All right. Next question is about the weekly rewards. I have a plan for restarting those up for Arena.
We don't have a set date yet. We want to get there's obviously a lot of stuff that we're doing with Arena. There's a lot of new modes that we're building. We've obviously uh, just released a new mode which people are getting used to, and so there's a lot of balancing that we're working on. And once we feel like the game is in a good state and we've got a decent player base on a weekly and monthly basis, that's when we'll restart the leaderboard rewards. The thing to note there is there's obviously going to be some overlap with the airdrop. I do think we'll start the leaderboards prior to the airdrop finishing. So it's not like you're going to get nothing by playing Arena, but yeah, we want to make sure it's in a really good state. We've done a bunch of testing on it now, given people rewards to play. Now I think it's prudent of us to make sure that the game is in a really, really good place, and then we can start them again.
Good. Maybe I'll be able to get good by then, but I doubt it. Okay. What is your plans in terms of difficulty for arena matches? How about game modes you can choose between casual and friendly modes and competitive? No augments. So basically like custom matches, I think is what they're asking.
So there's not any plans to do a custom match that relates to difficulty. I think that wouldn't be the right way to go about doing it. Remember, for each of the games that we have inside of Arena, there will be a version where you're going to be ranked, and then there'll be a version where you're not going to be judged on your rank, which will allow you to play your friend casually, where you don't need to worry about that fear of dropping down the ladder or going up the ladder. So the difference between casual and competitive in our ecosystem will be a fairly standard affair, which is that it'll all be based on whether or not you're going to change your rating as you play the game. And then just keep in mind that there are currently in development, 3 different modes inside of Arena for players that want to play something that is fairly complex. There will be Ascendant mode. The new mode that we're bringing out will be a little bit more casual. It'll be a little bit easier to pick up, and it'll still have the same ranking system, and there will be a competitive and non-competitive mode based on those rankings. There's also survival mode, which is where you don't even play against another person. You're actually just playing against a random series of waves. So we feel that there's going to be a lot of people that do get a bit nervous about playing against another person, and they'll probably go into survival. And then as people get a little bit more confident with it, they'll probably step across to playing in the other 2 games. Who knows what people are going to play, what they're going to like more, but we will have both modes there available for people to play. But I don't think there's ever going to be a custom mode where there's fewer things to think about, like only tier 1 Illuvials and so on and so forth. Keep in mind that the way that we plan to have this new more casual 8-player mode is that you won't need to own anything in the ecosystem to play it. You'll be able to own things, and that will reflect inside of the game, but you don't have to. So it will be really, really easy for people to pick that up and go on and play with it. So I think that's probably the best way that we can set it up. With respect to other games, it'll be a similar system as that. With Illuvium Beyond, we do have plans to do a card game. It's not approved by the council, so it's not something that we're actively working on. But with that, we would be doing a very similar thing where you'd be able to pick it up without spending any money, and also you'd be able to play it in a way that is a little bit more casual versus being a little bit more competitive. Overworld is probably the only one where that sort of paradigm doesn't really fit in, because it's sort of like the resource collecting game, same as Illuvium 0. They will most likely always just be what they are, and you'll be able to play on like free to play in Illuvium 0 on a plot of land which doesn't link into the resource gathering. It's just a way to sort of learn the system and just to enjoy it as a game. And same with the Overworld. You can go and travel free of charge and pick up just the tier 0 Illuvials and learn to play the game. But you can also do the more crypto side of it, where you actually start to pay for fuel and things like that. So most of the games going forward will be like Arena, where we'll have a system of competitive and casual modes. But I don't think it's ever going to be the case that will allow people to have a custom rule set. That's it's quite complex to do, and I think that would probably, fracture the player base a little bit too much. At the end of the day, that's what game modes are for. And currently with Arena, we have 3 separate game modes to play around with.
Yeah, I saw the UIs for player mode. I was excited to see them. Like it's coming together good.
That one will come together quicker than what people think. It's we've done a lot of the legwork with all of the structure that we've built into Arena. So making new game modes is reasonably quick. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of balance and stuff before we put it in the hands of the player base. But you internally will be able to play it pretty soon.
That's what I want to hear. Game nights will be back. All right. Well, let's move on to the overworld. You pretty much just covered this question, but they were wondering if there was going to be a cost for players that weren't interested in crypto. So basically, free to play versions. If we were going to have them, and you just covered all that in your last statement about all our free to play.
Yeah, probably the only thing to go into there is we've designed all of our games so that you don't have to have an interest in crypto, right? The whole point of them is that you sign up for an account just like any other game in existence. You don't have to have a crypto wallet to start playing any of our titles. We're going to have free-to-play versions on things like App Store, Google Play Store, things like that. You'll just be able to go and play them, right? Now, depending on which game you're talking about, determines what exactly that means. In the overworld, obviously that means that you don't need to pay for the assets, but at the same time, you only get access to the tier 0 Illuvials. But we've put a lot of our heart and soul into those tier 0 Illuvials to make them just as good as the others, right? It's not like they have worse graphics or anything like that. They're not second-class citizens in this world. They even have their own, dedicated bit of lore to explain exactly why they exist, right? So we've done it from the ground up so that people can just jump in and start playing our game. I would like to think that people could learn the game. You could pitch it to your friends just as a game that you like and not talk about it being a crypto game. Now, if you want to pitch it that way, that's absolutely fine. But remember, the main purposes that we have for using crypto inside of our games are for things like being able to instantly access a marketplace, have that marketplace instantly take, the 5% from the sales, which goes back towards the DAO that goes to the token holders, which allows token holders to vote. It's all about functional things. It's not meant to be a game where you just say, hey, it's crypto and the point of it is to get rich. That's not how we've envisaged it being. It's about being able to make a really cool game that leverages the technology for the things that make it good. I get given all of the time, videos where people say, look at this critique on crypto and, what do you have to say about it? And what I always say is that I usually agree with what they're pointing out. When people say, just because you own it doesn't mean that I can use it in other games. And we've never made a claim that you'll be able to use your assets to go into some, crypto version of World of Warcraft or whatever, right? Each game developer gets to decide which assets are used. It could be the case that someone decides to use Illuvium assets at some points in the future, and I think we'd be open to collaborations and things like that. But that's why we're building multiple titles, so that you can take something from one game to another. It doesn't require crypto to do that. It's just us making good on the promises that originally people made about crypto to make a game that just happens to match all of those features while being fun at the same time, right? So I guess the conclusion is you really shouldn't need to pitch people with that as the main selling point of the game. Just pitch them on the game itself, and then later on, when they realize that there's stuff in their custodial wallet that has actual value and they want to sell it, they can go and do that. They can go and trade and do all of those things. And then maybe they start to get into crypto, right? We see it as a way for people to sort of dip their toe in the water without even realizing it. And it's probably the best way for it to be, especially considering there are a lot of gamers out there who have a negative sentiment to it. We're hoping that this can help sway the tide on that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That you're probably better off not mentioning the crypto thing for a lot of people.
I mean, for most crypto games, that's impossible, right? You can't not, right? That's one of the advantages of us. And there's other games out there that are starting to look at it in this way. I think that IMX Passport helps out with this a lot. So it is something that is not unique to us, but it's not common.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a lot of people already that were registering today commenting about how simple and easy Passport was, and it's like you said, it's just like getting on any other game you're going to log into, your email, your Google account, and you're done.
And we're looking at ways to give people a secondary wallet where they can nominate something that they have full custody over. It won't have all of the same features as the main Passport wallet, which allows us to do things like, not make you sign transactions all the time every time you want to, forge something in the game, right? But if you have something that's very valuable, like maybe a Dark Hollow, Ophisto or something like that, well, in those cases, understandably, there might be a lot of people out there that don't want to hold them in a custodial wallet, and for those people, will allow you to read those assets in another much safer wallet. So we're looking at it from both sides to make sure that people get the advantages out of the best part of crypto while trying to smooth the edges of it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best parts about Passport, but like scary for like everybody that's already in crypto, if you know what I mean. Like for me personally, me not getting my seed phrase in my hands is like kind of weird, but for anybody else coming in Passport that has no idea, like it's great. But
well, I think that there's an important thing to remember. Like with most people, we would always say that you should have a hot wallet and a cold wallet, where the hot wallet has the things that you're willing to,
part with,
in a worst case scenario, like you part ways with. Keeping in mind that I think that this will be vastly more safe than just having a wallet where you're going around and connecting it to random websites that you really shouldn't be doing, right? There's a lot of people that do a lot of very risky things in the crypto space. The Passport wallet is going to be like orders of magnitude more safe than that. But that's why we're building in a secondary wallet solution, so that you can think of the Passport wallet like your hot wallet, where you keep things that you don't want to have to sign for transactions and stuff like that. And obviously you need to keep your password for that very, very safe. But then you can offload them into your other, what I would call like your cold storage wallet. And there's certain things that you won't be able to access with that, or at least that will be a lot clunkier to access inside of the game, which is totally fine because you're trading that ease of use or the safety. So we feel like there's going to be a really good setup that covers the best of both worlds for people. And once they start using it, I think that people will get used to it really, really quickly, and it'll be best in class experience for onboarding into a crypto game.
Yep. I think so too. It's already pretty good. So, all right, moving on. You mentioned lore in there, So the next question was win lore.
So specifically for PB4, we've actually decided to take out the first part of the onboarding experience, that first user experience that you get when you go into the game. The reason for that is because the very start of it gives you a lot of the background of the game. So we're hiding that for the moment. So effectively you'll start later on in the tutorial and go through the very simple experience of capturing your first Illuvial and that sort of thing, which won't really give you much of the lore, but it will teach you how to play Overworld. Then when we go into open beta, that's when people will start to see the lore. There is a 3.5 minute in-game cinematic that you'll see when you start playing that will sort of fill in some of the pieces that our other trailers have sort of hinted at, and it'll give you a better understanding of why you're on the planet and what's going on. And from there you'll go through the onboarding experience, which will then give you a little bit more of a grounding into who you are as a ranger. And then you'll go out into the world, and there's various lore related things that are dispersed out there that I don't want to go into. I will say, for anyone who hasn't heard interviews from me in the past, that the way that our lore is built into the game is absolutely not like something like a Red Dead Redemption, right? You're not playing a single player campaign where there's chapters and things like that. This is not an interactive movie. The whole point is that you're there on that planet with a bunch of other players, and together you're working on various things. So for most people, it will be the standard gameplay loop that you go through, very similar to many other games out there where there's a button that you press to go and travel. There's a button that you press to go and play against someone else in arena. And you don't need to interact with the lore almost at all if you're that sort of a person, right? If you just want to go and collect things and build it up, you become your own lore, right? You're, influencing other people. Maybe you become someone who's, incredibly good at, forging and making items, and you sell yourself that way. You'll become part of our universe because it's really about the players. For people that are really into the lore of the game, there will be background stuff that'll be coming out all of the time that will slowly start to reveal what is happening in the world, and you'll be able to be a part of that if you want, but or if you're lucky, but you won't ever be, at least for the beginning of this, you won't ever be the main character. There is a main character of our game that is going on their own, I guess, personal journey, and you'll be able to slowly get an understanding of what they're doing while you're doing what you're doing, and it'll just be there for people that are interested in that. So it's a fairly I think it's a fairly compelling backstory for everything, but again, not everyone wants to go through those things. So for the average player, they'll be able to just go out there, go into the world, collect some stuff, and go play the games. And then when we get other games out there, they'll be able to play extra card games. Maybe we'll have a kart racing game and all sorts of things. They'll be able to play all of those things. We're trying to keep them all lore accurate so that, the characters stay true to themselves across all titles. You're not going to find that if you get Ramfire into a cart, that he's going to be a really defensive style player. It'll definitely be more on the attack side of things, but that's just to bed people into a system so that they understand that the stuff that they learned in previous games will translate over and make them better at it. But I until we do something like an actual TV or TV show or movie, I don't think that people are going to get the full extent of the game. There's little pieces of lore that you'll find around the world from a particular character that no one knows about yet. And there's a whole, I mean, there really is a whole movie worth of plot for just that one character that's related to their entire backstory. And you're only going to get little hints of that through the first games that we do. It's there so that we understand our universe, so that we don't just start making crap up as we go along. But if we did do some sort of a TV show or something, then you'd have a whole prequel story there for that person that is, I actually find it to be my favorite story of the three main stories that we want to tell.
Man, a whole bunch of leaks in there. I saw the I told Roger when I saw the Overworld beginning tutorial that I was like, yes, like this will immerse people, and really I really enjoyed that. Looking forward. I was disappointed when I heard it wasn't coming PB4 for everyone. Okay. Move on to the next one. Right now, you can hunt and catch Illuvials and forge materials in the Overworld run. Are there any new activities that you are exploring? Would be interesting to spend energy to play a mini game in the Overworld, for example.
So we do have plans to create mini games like speed runs and stuff like that, but not at the moment. We're pretty much solely focused on the core gameplay loops. But the exciting thing is what a lot of the feedback has been since we released that first private beta of the Overworld was there's not enough life. It's a little bit boring. I'm running around. Obviously, the maps are huge, and so it took a while to encounter things. So what we're working on is the hunting, which I think we've shown a little snippet of the hunting so far, and a little bit more in the video that we dropped today, which will give you a bit of an idea of how much more interactive it is actually having the Illuvials in the overworld. That for me was the moment where I was like, wow, okay, now this is a creature capture game. And obviously it was before, but it just hits differently. When you see the Illuvial, when you can hunt it down, it's a pretty eye-opening experience when you played the previous versions that we've released. So that's really exciting. But then we've gone a step further by adding things like morphopod combat, so they can attack you now, which is something that you need to avoid. We're also looking at plant combat, which is another thing when you're trying to hunt down an alluvial. You got to make sure that you don't run into either a swarm of morphopods or a dangerous plant. And so that makes it super interactive. And then the final piece there is actual alluvial combat, which we've built a prototype, which was done very, very quickly. It's not something that is going to be in for open beta, but it is what we're looking to be the final stage. And what that will mean is you won't actually need to go into the auto battler at all in the overworld, which still I was playing the overworld, the latest build the other day, and obviously with that not being in, even though hunting is still super exciting and it makes it really, really cool, it still feels a little bit disconnected, right, from normal creature capture games like your Pokemon and Monster Hunter and whatever. And so I think getting to that final stage where you can actually start using your weapons to fight the Illuvials in the overworld and then capture them in the overworld is going to be a really exciting state. And when you combine all of those new elements together, it starts to become pretty immersive. which is where we always wanted the overworld to get to. And I, I have to say, I thank the community for all of the feedback that you've given us. It's definitely inspired us to work as hard as possible to get as many things in before the open beta. But yeah, from my perspective, it's in a really good state. Once we get that core gameplay loop done and we're happy with it, and more importantly, the feedback is extremely positive, that's when we can start to build out little mini games inside of the overworld, which we can attach ILV prizes for, and we can do like little tournaments and stuff like that. But yeah, for me, I'm just personally really excited to see what people think about the new overworld, because it's completely different when you start seeing the Illuvials in there, and you can start hunting them down.
Yeah, even the morphopods are attacking now. So
I know those little bastards. It's actually they're frustrating. They're hard to see, and then when you do, you're like, oh no, it's too late, and they can actually get you down pretty quickly. So, but it's all part of the fun, right? Like we don't want to make it so the overworld is super hard, right? Like the whole premise at the very beginning was that it was this, we call it a pack opening experience. I think it's developed beyond that now, but we don't want to go to the point where it's it's so hard to capture an alluvial that it turns people off, especially when you're talking about paying. And there are other things in there where if you can't quite capture an alluvial, it will pop up in another space on the map and you can go and get it. And so we don't want that negative experience, but we also want it to be super interactive and super fun at the same time.
yeah, I think yeah, people are definitely going to enjoy the changes. But yeah, the next question was, what will morphopods be used for?
Pissing people off.
Pretty much now.
So morphopods are an interesting thing. They're actually sort of deeply into the lore. There was something that originally we didn't think that we would add to the game, and we ended up deciding to put them in. They were meant to be just for the story, mainly because we felt like that there'd be a lot of art that would be required for them, and there has been, but most of that has been done now, and they're looking really good. So as far as practical purposes, the main thing at the moment is for dyes, and dyes are used in the making of skins and things like that. So there is a little bit of crossplay between Illuvium 0 and Overworlds. Currently, there's no use for them in Arena, but this 8-player mode of the game, I should really say multiplayer, because it's not set that we will have it be 8 players. It could be 4, it could be 64. I don't think it'll be 64. It'll probably be 8, but they might make an appearance in there at some point, and so you'll be able to start to see things come together across all of the different games. The idea is to make it as interoperable as we possibly can, but the core tenet for our interoperability is always going to be the Illuvials. Illuvials need to appear in every game, and ideally they need to appear in ways that can be functional to you. There's still a little bit of work that we have to do inside of Illuvium 0 to make them more functional than what they are at the moment, but that's the core to it. But things like morphopods will be able to connect between a few of the games, and that'll be the case for like almost everything that we do, is that there'll be some connection between at least 2 titles with something. We don't want to add a lot of things to our world which are standalone and you only see them in this other one. Mainly because from an efficiency point of view, it just means that we have to have a larger and larger team building more and more assets. So by being able to utilize the same assets over and over again, we can do that. I mean, this is to the point where we're almost positive that at some point we will move over Illuvium 0 to being a 3D game, and you'll be able to go in and rotate around your plot. At the moment, it's obviously 2D, and so that's something that we're looking at down the road, so that it's always the same assets that you see. They may be obviously a lot more low res or low poly count, but that just depends on the type of device that you're using to play our games. But it does allow us to do a lot more cool things if we can keep the same lot of things across all the different games.
Right. Next question. Will there be Illuvials that I can catch? And when I do, will there be an NFT minted for that Illuvial? If so, will all of them be NFTs or just some of the rare ones?
Yeah, so all of the Illuvials that you can capture will be NFTs. There are obviously some things in the game which aren't NFTs, but that's mainly so we can make the world more immersive and have more things to interact with. But yes, the general premise is to any of the Illuvials that you can capture are NFTs. They're yours to own, and you can do whatever you like with them. As Aaron said, maybe even potentially bring them into not maybe, but definitely be able to bring them into other games in the future, which is one of the things that I'm most excited about. But we also don't want to flood the marketplace and devalue the assets and stuff like that. So we've got to create a balance between, you know, the amount of interactions that you have in the overworld versus how many you can actually capture. And so there'll be a good balance between the two. And that's another thing that I think people aren't realizing with the overworld. None of that has been shown before. And yeah, it all just pieces together to make it much, much more feel like it's much more alive, and the immersion is certainly much, much better.
How will we know by how much how will we know how much Illuvials have leveled up in terms of XP after each battle? And how will this change if we intend to remove the autobattler in the future?
So there's a few user interface panels that are not in the game now, or at least not in the version of the game that is live in production, but you will be able to see it after every battle. This goes for arena and for encounters. You'll actually just see them. You'll see whether or not they leveled up. You'll see how much they need to get to the next level, all of that sort of stuff. If we go to it's probably better to say when we go to a battling system where you're fighting them out in the overworld and you've got Illuvials by your side fighting and stuff like that, it will be a little bit more difficult to show that. It'll be something that you'll have to go into the menu to see, because you won't really have here's the end of a battle sort of. It's not as clear cut, right? When you're out in the world and fighting, you just continue to fight. Whereas with arena, it'll be very easy to see, because it'll be, yep, game's over. Here's what happened with all of your Illuvials. So there's still a little bit of nuance into how we show that, but you'll always be able to go into the menu for each of your Illuvials and see where they're at. And we'll show things like how much was gained in the last battle that they fought. But it'll probably always be a little bit more tricky in the overworld to see that compared to in arena and other games, right? Anything that's a competitive game that has a very defined start and finish, it'll be really easy. If you go and take Atlas and do a PB in the Brightland Steps course of our kart racing game, at the end of the race, it'll just show you, you've you've leveled up, or you're only 2% off of getting to the next level, etc., etc. So all of the games in the future will be very easy to see. The only one that makes it a little bit difficult is Overworld, and I'll be honest, we haven't solved it completely, but it's the sort of thing where we need feedback from you guys in terms of what matters to you, and when we do implement something, you can tell us what you think about it. As you've seen over the last couple of years, every time we put something out for you guys to take a look at, we do look at the feedback and we do adjust things. I think that there's definitely a lot of things that we can have criticism leveled at us for, but one of them is not whether or not we actually listen to the community. I mean, we can't listen to everyone's idea on every single thing, but I would say that we're much more responsive than most other game developers that are out there.
How quickly you guys threw together these other modes. All right. On to the next here. Will Overworld support multiplayer online mode with social features?
Sorry, can you repeat that one?
Will Overworld support multiplayer online mode with social features?
Oh yeah, of course. So we've already built out, and I mean obviously things need to go through a lot of quality control testing and stuff like that, but we've already built out the chat feature. That'll be something that is ubiquitous across as many games as we can do. It will even be included in things like Illuvium 0. Yes, at the moment, Illuvium 0 is a one-player game where you're just on your own piece of land, but you'll still have access to a chat menu, and you'll be able to chat with your friends. You can talk about various things. There's things that we're adding at the moment, such as like hyperlinks based on if you talk about a particular item, it'll pop up so that you can click on that item and see the details of it. And that'll help make conversations go a lot more smoothly. But this is something that will work between all of the games. It's going to be a little bit tricky with all of the 1v1 and multiplayer game modes where we'll have to have some chat filtering so that there's not people hurling abuse at each other, but we'll have some features that allow you to turn off the chat feature if you don't want to hear those things. Plus there'll be filters out for various words. When we go further than that, there is absolutely plans. It'll probably not be there by launch, but there'll absolutely be plans for a multiplayer in the overworld, in the sense of being able to see other players walking around Sanctum Mesa, just like in most MMORPGs. It'll probably be instance, so you're not going to see everyone at the same time. There's probably only going to be like 100 people in your version of it. It'll depend on how robust we can build out the technology, but to put it into perspective, we already do have a very, very rough prototype of doing that in Overworld as it stands. We've even gone further than that. We already have a very rough prototype of what it would look like to have a combat against other people in the Overworld, like in a third-person shooter style of way. You can think of, there's a lot of games out there that match that style. Now, we didn't do this like as some huge piece of work that you guys haven't heard of and that we're trying to hide from you. I'm talking about just something that was done over a weekend to make sure that there was a good proof of concept and that it was fun. And it is. So yes, there will definitely be multiplayer. There'll definitely be online. There'll definitely be social features such as chat. We even want there to be a form of multiplayer while you're traveling around in the world. I've hinted at this for a couple of years now, but it'll be multiplayer / single player sort of a mode when you go out and travel. People can speculate on what exactly that might mean. It's not anything super fancy, but we think that it'll be something that will be really cool and we'll be able to help people with onboarding and stuff like that. However, I don't want to go into the exact details of what it'll look like because it might spoil a little bit the lore, or I guess not so much the lore, but maybe the physics of our game. So yeah, there'll be all of these things and more. Remember that the eventual goal is not to build specifically an MMORPG. The goal is to build out some core modes, the two resource gathering modes of Illuvium 0 and Overworld will always be what I would consider to be the most special parts of our game because they have unique place in the world, right? Illuvium 0 is, the engine to our economy. It's always going to be like by far the most important when it comes to those sort of things. It'll also be important in terms of the lore. There's things that eventually they will, learn about it to understand the differences between people that are out on land and people that are at Sanctum Mesa, and why there's a difference there. Then there's the Overworld, which is, I guess, the item generation engine, where people can generate all of the items. No other games will really have that. Besides, like Illuvium Beyond does have its own item generation, but it is unique to it. And even it will still connect up with Overworld because the way that people will play, if we do eventually get the rights to build out the card game in Illuvium Beyond, it will be a game that requires Illuvials as well, right? Every game requires Illuvials to be able to play. So really those two game modes will be the core part of our experience, and everything else will sort of like hook into them, if that makes sense.
I think this is our last for Overworld, or at least find 0, and then we're getting to 0. I promise, guys. Don't worry. I know a lot of you were here for Illuvium 0, so.
Jesus, give the 0 guys a chance.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, like I think we should have another town hall more based around Illuvium 0, like next week maybe. We can get you. Johnny may be available. I think Johnny's here in the crowd, so maybe Johnny's available next week. But yeah, so next question. Do you think mass adoption and attracting a skeptical Web 2 community works with pay to progress concept? Pay to progress concept. Do you think capturing tier 0 Illuvials is enough to addict the masses? Who they will be able to play in the arena and have fun with only tier 0 Illuvials?
Yeah, and so I mean, it's a very it's been done in mainstream so many times with great success. There's a ton of examples where you get a bunch of free to play elements inside of a game, and then there's potential ways to either save time or to buy up all of the powerful characters in a game. Genshin Impact does it, like Clash of Clans does it. League of Legends sort of does it, but it doesn't. Even though it's only cosmetic, there's still that free to play element, and then you can start buying champions. Which theoretically, if you're better at one champion and you need to pay for it, it's going to make you a better player inside the game. And so, yeah, I think we've got a really good mix. Like what people aren't realizing is that there's a lot of content that is free inside of Illuvium. Right? We talk about additional games like Illuvicart. If you go and capture a Doka, you're going to do that for free. You'll be able to play the kart racer going around with your Doka mobile. So that's the way that we want to create every single game that we have, where there's a decent amount of playability without having to put in any money at all. And then the idea is to slowly over time, once people fall in love with the IP, entice them to come over to start paying and seeing the advantages of doing that, right? Like if someone falls in love with the Illuvium IP and they sit there and they say, well, I don't have enough time to grind in the overworld, but I absolutely love playing this game. I'm now going to go onto the Illuvidex and start buying characters. The cool thing in our ecosystem, and this is one of the advantages of being a crypto-based game, is that player who has caught that character benefits from it. It's not something where we're saying, okay, Ramfires are now on sale. Come and give the Illuvium DAO 1 ETH and you get to buy a Ramfire. You have to do it through purchasing off someone else, which I think softens the blow a little bit as well. Once people understand that concept, all of a sudden, paying for something inside of a game isn't as daunting, because you also think you've got the ability to then sell that to someone else coming into the ecosystem. If for whatever reason you finish with that character, or maybe want to play that particular game anymore. So you've got those options. So yeah, I think we've got a really, really good mix. It's one of the things that killed our art team, is having so many Illuvials. I remember when we first started, and I said to Aaron, I was like, we have to have 150 Illuvials. And then we decided, shit, we really got to build up the free to play element. We'd already started concepting out those 150 Illuvials. So adding the 50 additional free to play characters was obviously quite a task, but I think it's that gateway for people to get a taste. And then once they get a taste, they can start looking at the other avenues, which will cost them a little bit of money to play. But again, it's not too dissimilar to a ton of successful games out there.
All right. Okay, now we can move on to Illuvium 0. I don't know how much more time you have, both of you. Do you good for a little while longer, Aaron?
I can stay for a little bit longer.
Okay.
I was meant to be in an IMC meeting, so I think those guys are good to wait.
Okay.
They're
Okay.
probably in here. Maybe we can take.
I mean, I
we
see.
can take the weekly IMC into the town hall.
I see.
How's that for
I see some of them in there. Yeah. All right. So, Illuvium 0. Well, the first question's basically just high level, I think. It says, well, what is the plan for Illuvium 0? The community wants more information on overall plans for 0, players, land value, etc.
So I just got an update from Johnny on this, and he got it from the Illuvium 0 team. So I just want to make it clear that Illuvium 0 team is working in Unity, and they are somewhat isolated from the other teams. And so nothing that we've added on the arena or the overworld side in the last like 3 or 4 months has hindered the progress of Illuvium 0. And another thing that Johnny wanted me to point out is I'm not sure if you guys know this, but we actually lost our lead dev on 0 a couple of months ago due to health reasons. And so that has been a little bit of a cause for delay. But there's also been a lot of improvements. We've completely refactored the code. The back end has its own. We've got their own dedicated back end resource there, and the ability to draw on more when required. And so it is in a really good place, and the new version is much smoother, much better to play. It's ready for integration into iOS and Android, and so we are in a much better place. And looking at the roadmap update that I just got for those guys in their sprint to open beta, nothing in the free to play version is hindering the paid version of Zero. So that also the idea of, oh, now you're building out a free to play version, that isn't causing any delay whatsoever. But the good news is we are way closer than I thought, right? Like to the point where after this call, I'm actually going to round up the Zero team, and I'm going to offer them a really substantial bonus. It'll come from my tokens if they can do things a little bit faster. I will caveat that by saying these guys have been going absolutely ballistic over the last 4 or 5 months. Some experiencing burnout just because the deadline has been looming, and so we'll do whatever we can to speed this up. But right now, it's looking like we'll be able to start testing the free to play version in about a month's time, and then we should have the free to play version open for testing inside of the testnet phase around about the middle of June. That's the goal here, which would translate to us being able to go live, I would say, at some stage in July would be the target. So if it is delayed, we're talking about not some. I know a lot of Illuvium Zero people are very, very frustrated, and they're like, if there's a delay, it's not going to be till 2025. That's not going to be the case. I assure you of that. It's a matter of it's going to be slightly delayed, and I'm going to do whatever I can to get that team to try and prevent that delay, and we'll see how we go. But there's like 2 or 3 features that they need to finish and polish, and then we'll be ready to start testing. So we're pretty damn close. And I know that kind of touches a couple of different things, but I just wanted to preface this Zero conversation with that information, because I think that has been lacking. And I will say as well that communication to the landholders and the Zero players needs to be much better, and I'll accept responsibility for that. I definitely, I've been in there for the last week, and I've realized we've lapsed on that. We should be much more in tune with what's going on there. Obviously, everyone has been affected by the delays. You can go across the board, beyond players, Zero players, arena players, ILV holders. Everyone has been affected, but I think we've done a particularly poor job at communicating to the landholders. So I want to make sure that we at least fix that up and keep you guys in the loop and be as transparent as possible. But yeah, there's definitely some other stuff that we're looking to do as well.
Yeah, like I said, partially on me too, probably. Yeah, like I said, I think we need to have another town hall coming up based around Illuvium Zero, getting him more information.
I say it's definitely your fault.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
I'm kidding.
All right. Do we have what is the estimated fuel rails as of right now?
So we haven't fully decided what those rails will be, but the important thing there is the reason, or one of the advantages of us going into private beta 4 and then having an additional testing phase on testnet is for us to be able to test out. We can't fully replicate what is going to happen and the player behavior, because it's not effectively real money. You're using holier ETH, but it will give us a much better idea of where we want to price things. And I think so it's whatever the price ends up being, it's going to fluctuate almost guaranteed. The chance of us getting it right from day one is super low. So that's what I would say. Don't get married to whatever the price is. If you think it's too high, if you think it's too low, it's probably going to change. So that's the first thing there. And then yeah, once we get to the point where we've got a whole bunch of data, that's when we can zero in. But I will say the important thing is accessibility. That has been, again, from a community feedback standpoint, and I know you guys always want things for as low as possible. It makes sense, so do I. But yeah, from a accessibility standpoint, we definitely want someone to make that leap from free to play to pay to play, if you will, to not be a massive blocker where they're sitting there and they're like, that's just stupid. So we want those prices to be low. And then we also have, of course, the rails where the landholders have that agency where if the demand is crazy, they can choose to keep things high. If the demand starts dropping off, I think you'll see the landholders go, shit, I'm going to get in before I think it's going to go even lower. And then all of a sudden, once fuel gets to a really low point, a lot of the overworld hunters are going to say, shit, I'm going to stockpile as much fuel as I can get now at a low point, which is going to bring the price up. So we've got that exciting dynamic there. And I think I made a joke about this, that I'm a little bit scared with the landholders at the moment and what the power that they have with the ability with that, without having that top rail. It would be a little bit scary. They're quite disgruntled at the moment, and I know it's a minority that is quite loud about it. But because that agency is there, the ability for them to bind together and say, you know what, we're not going to sell land below this price until our demands are met, right? Like that is still obviously possible, but with the top rail, there's that protection. But I think I truly believe, just purely for the excitement factor, that at some stage, once all these issues are ironed out, once Illuvium zeroes out, once fuel generation is happening, I really think we can get to the point where that top rail won't need to exist and it can be a truly free market. And we'll be able to test that as we go. We obviously won't take those rails off until we actually know that things are quite stable. But I think that is a really big selling point and something that's super unique to our game. And that's why, the landholders, once that faucet is open and they can start generating this fuel, they'll see how much power and agency they have over the entire ecosystem. You need fuel in order to be able to do all these interactions. So I think that's going to solve a lot of the issues.
I mean, you talk about like landowners. It's funny because you talk about them like you aren't a landowner.
That's the thing that gets me. They're like, well, you wouldn't understand. It's like, okay, well, I spent $1.8 million on land. For those of you who don't know, I fat fingered 3 plots during the land sale and bought them at about $79,000 each. So trust me when I say I'm heavily invested into land. A lot of the it actually becomes a problem internally because I'm constantly listening to the feedback from community members across all different mediums, whether it be Twitter, whether it be YouTube, and whatever. And that is what causes some of the reactive moves that we have, which is a problem, but it's also a good thing as well, where we are listening to you. It gets me in trouble all the time. Trust me, I go back to Aaron and I'm like, we've got to do this. And he's like, we cannot do that. And I'm like, I'm telling you, everyone's going to rage and we've got to do something. And then we end up doing something. And so from my perspective, when people are like, you're an asshole, how can you not want to help us? I'm like, I'm doing everything I can to help you. And I'm also one of you. So just calm
I
down.
can confirm that 100%. They should be railing at me.
I own land too, so nice, guys. Okay, so the next question. With Zero most likely not ready for open beta, which we covered, I understand the DAO will give landowners 5% revenue, but I gather that means landowners will have to pay ETH to do their overworld runs. They won't be able to use their own fuel, which defeats the purpose of having land.
So I'll lean into the the ragging on me. Get over it. It is what it is. No. This is half right, I would say. The first part is that yes, you won't be able to use your own fuel, at least the way that we've got it planned at the moment. But there is a workaround. You're getting the 5% revenue. You can use that 5% revenue to buy fuel using ETH on the other side. Keep in mind that the way that we transfer it through the game is effectively just like when we originally were planning this out, there was a way of doing it which effectively was exactly that, just obfuscating it so that you don't see it happening. It just feels like you're transferring fuel across. But really what's happening is it's all going through the fuel pool anyway. So yes, but it does not defeat the purpose of having land, right? The purpose of having land is, number one, it gives you access to be able to play the full version of the game and change the way that the economy works in the long run. And secondly, it's about revenue generation, which you will still get, right? There are certain things that we're planning on doing to make it a little bit more that the revenue will go to the people that are active with it, but Kieran can talk a little bit more about that. But overall, I would say that doing it this way is going to be a much better thing than just delaying the entire game launch. So yeah, it's not ideal, but I don't think it's the catastrophe that some people are making it out to be.
And from what Kieran said, might all be all right soon. I think so.
Yeah, we're trying to get everything done as fast as we possibly can, right? So, I mean, there's other game modes that are getting developed after launch. There's lots of additional things that will be added to Overworld after launch. There's part of it being in a public beta is that it's not in a finished state. I totally get it. Not being able to do the interconnected version of land is definitely a really unideal situation to be in. I'm not going to try and state it any other way, but the idea of being able to give people the revenue is something that we find to be the most important part of that. So just owning the land means that you will get access to that revenue, which I think, delivers on at least a decent amount of the promise of what land was. It was supposed to have utility that you would be able to get revenue from the game, and you will still be able to get that. Hey, I'd love to be able to go back in time and solve all of the problems and fix all of my own mistakes, right? I think that everyone needs to be fully aware that a lot of the reasons for these delays caused because of me as well. So if we could go back in time and fix them, we certainly would. But we have to work with the reality that we're under, which is that we can launch the game before we get the full version of Illuvium 0 out. And we think that that's going to be the best way to do it.
Yeah, and just in relation to like how we actually distribute this land, I was the one who probably ignorantly assumed that given that there may not be a delay at all, and if there is, it's going to be a small delay. The idea of Illuvium Zero players automatically getting that 5% distributed to them proportionately based on their tier of land, I assumed that the majority of people would be in favor of that. I don't know. I have a sneaking suspicion that if it was just a landholder vote and the 8,000 people that hold land were actually voting on that, I have a feeling that they would actually be in favor of that, and that's why I thought it's not going to be that big of an issue. But again, as I said, I've been in the Illuvium Zero chats for the last week and a half, and I totally get where you guys are coming from. There's been 2 years of gameplay. You've spent a whole bunch of time getting really, really good at the game, and there is going to be an advantage you're going to have over someone who hasn't played their land in being able to generate more fuel quicker and be able to sell that, and so you will have the opportunity to earn more. So that's the biggest thing for me, right? Like obviously, talking about compensation uh, is one thing, and that can potentially be solved. I think a big issue is that Illuvium Beyond players have been receiving rewards. I've made it very clear that we're going to make that whole with the airdrop, and you guys will get whatever that delta is. That will be made up. We've also mentioned the two fuel crates that are going to be sent out. One has already been received, and so those are like they're the compensation that we're talking about. And obviously, if people are still not happy, which it's a slippery slope, right? Like when we talk about compensation, uh, you know, then anyone can start saying, "Well, I thought I would be able to get rev dirs by now, and I can't. So where's my free stuff?" And so it's a little bit slippery, but I do accept on that there definitely needs to be some sort of compensation, which we'll definitely look at, and we can fix that with the airdrop. But the other issue of which I think is the main issue that I'm hearing is that there's going to be a whole bunch of people that potentially don't even generate fuel. They bought it 2 years ago. They're super rich. They're whales that just have 50 other things on their mind. They don't go and play zero. And all of a sudden, instead of 20,000 plots being active, maybe it's 10,000, right? So your production goes up in value a ton because of that. And I get that. And that's why I proposed the solution, which isn't amazing, but it's the only thing we can do if we want to go down the path of giving you guys who are wanting to play actively now what you deserve. The only way to do that is to put it in a bonus pool and give you guys some percentage, maybe 10 months, which is what I proposed is too long. Maybe it could be over, 2 months or a month or whatever you guys think. But that is the only way to give you guys the same outcome as it being open straight away. The other big one so we need to talk about that, and we can get to a conclusion on what we end up doing there. We can change the IIP. I think you all, from listening to me now, I want to fix this. We want to make sure that you guys don't feel like you've been screwed over from what you've been planning for a couple of years. And I think the other one is not being able to play your plot and build it up prior to the game launching. Again, it's a tough one. Without us delaying the entire game launch, we can't do it, right? Which it sucks. It's a hard pill to swallow, but I think that would be at the point if we were to do that, we would hire community. And I just think that's going to be a tough one to get over the line. Maybe it happens. I'd be surprised, but maybe it happens. Again, I'm a huge landholder, and I would be against that. I think it's more important for us to get the game out. You guys we will still be getting our 5% or whatever situation we end up going with in terms of the pooled revenue. So we're not losing anything. It's just being delayed. And I think that is more important than us saying, actually, let's delay the launch again. I think the effects of that are going to be pretty bad.
Okay.
And I think that the people who are like, you should just airdrop us the rest of the land.
This was the next question.
I think, I mean, I don't know how serious people are when they make comments like that. But again, there are other people in this ecosystem, mainly people who have bought ILV and are looking for revenue distributions. If we were to say, let's never sell any more land plots, it would definitely need to go through governance. But just thinking about what that actually means, there's going to be a lot of SILV2 that has gone out of the system once the game launches. If we get into a really good position where things are going successful and we're generating a bunch of revenue, we're talking about like hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue that the DAO will leave on the table, and that will be taken that will be taken from ILV holders. So again, while I know it's going to make me feel better and you feel better, just airdropping a whole bunch of plots or saying that there's no plots going to be minted ever again, but you've got to look at the flip side and the other people in the ecosystem and be fair to them. It's a pretty crazy concept. So that's my thoughts on that. Like, I know people love free money, but we got to be a little bit realistic here. We still are a DAO.
And I mean, I think Aaron just answered this part of the question in chat too, but what about as far as just not having more land sales?
Again, we can definitely do that. And we've totally we've discussed that previously. Over the last 2 years, I've answered that question so many times, many times in AMAs. And my answer is always the same. If the ILV holders write an IIP for us to say we don't want to sell any more land ever, no matter how successful the game gets, and they want to leave hundreds of millions of dollars on the table, so be it. But I think the chance of that being approved is so close to zero. It's a non-starter to even discuss it. So that's and yeah, the other thing is there would be it's a little bit weird, like mega cities get affected with that. Like it's not the way that we've planned it out. I think we should definitely just stick to the plan. And yeah, like, yes, again, free money or make the value of my asset immediately go up by 5x is great, but you've got to look at the repercussions on the other side. And the craziest part is there's people that get so passionate. I was speaking to someone the other day and I was like, just tell me, how much ILV do you hold versus land? And they were like, oh, I've got like 4 plots. And I'm like, how much ILV do you hold? And they're like, oh, like 4,500. I'm like, it's going to cost you on the other side with your revenue distributions like 15 times more than it will the additional revenue that you get or the additional value that your land suddenly gets if that happens. Like, have you thought about the other side of the equation? And they were like, oh, fuck, no. And maybe it's because we haven't had revenue distributions in so long. I just don't see that as a real thing. But let me tell you, if we go out and do another $70 million land sale, that is going to massively boost the token price. And it's also going to go back to you, the ILV holder. So it's kind of crazy, this argument, and I know people get passionate about it because you've spent money on something, but I think we just need to take a step back and be more rational here. We'll do the things that I said in terms of trying to help out with compensation. We haven't been able to do rewards and stuff and actively reward people that have been playing Illuvium Zero. And there's been tons and tons and tons of you. Probably the most active cohort out of all the games. But the reasons have been technical, not because we're sitting here like, fuck those landholders. So we will fix that. And yeah, I think we just need to be a little bit more rational.
Somebody's going to clip that.
Well, the other thing to remember is that no one's planning on doing a sale tomorrow or anything like that, right? It depends on the demand. It's only as demand goes up that we plan. It's not like we're just going to go out there and sell 80,000 plots tomorrow, right? It's always been to scale up with demand.
Well, you mentioned megacities in there. So has there been any type of development for megacity owners? Are there numbers of how many megacities exist? Are there talks about expanding the zero utility, game utility?
So megacities depends on the number of plots that there are in the world. So I'm not exactly sure what is meant by how many megacities there are, right? The idea of megacity is
how many have been completed?
How many have been completed?
As in, like, how many people have got the 4 and 6 plots now?
Oh, I actually don't know. Do we have data on that?
I know Scoriox did a video on it.
Yeah, tell us, Scoriox, how many are there? I
300,
asked Barry about 3 hours ago, but he went to sleep.
I think that would be a very hard one to pick because there's probably some people that have bought it using a different address, right?
Yeah.
Like smart people would probably not buy 3, or 8 under one account because then they're sort of ripe to be sniped. So I would suggest that there's probably more than whatever the count is, because there's probably some people that are using separate wallets to hold on to it. That's what I would do. I'm not saying that's what I have done. I'm just saying that's what I would do.
He's definitely done it.
That's what I told Scoriox. I told him his numbers weren't right because he can't account for that. But he's close, probably. He says 10%. All right.
We also haven't spoken about free-to-play Illuvium, Illuvium Zero. And so let me just explain the plan there, right? So obviously we've just announced this massive airdrop. And as we all know, there are millions of players that don't have access to a PC, which makes it impossible for them to play Illuvium unless they go and buy a land plot. Now, the idea with Illuvium Zero free to play is that we open it up to all of the guilds that are out there. And the enticement is to be able to farm the airdrop. And so there's not a massive amount of points, but it's a meaningful amount for the type of player in that demographic where, a few bucks here and there actually means quite a lot. And so the idea there is we can go out to all the guilds and say, offer this free-to-play product and you'll be able to play to earn throughout the airdrop period. Now, the idea is that if we get tons and tons of people playing free-to-play version, not only will it mean that a lot of players over time will slowly transition to saying, you know what, I can see how lucrative this could be. I can see how much these other guys are earning. I'm actually going to go and buy a land plot. But it also means that the guilds are going to do that as well. Because they have so much, because there will be so much demand from their players, they'll say, can you give me a land plot? I will play it. And what that will mean is the price of land should theoretically increase because the demand is so much higher. There's literally like 10 guilds out there that have a collective 10 million players that want access to mobile games like that. And if there's a way to earn, the guild has the funds to be able to say, you know what, let's put a big placement in here and invest hundreds of thousands of dollars buying up plots of land. And the carrot is to get them into the free to play version, get their players in and loving it. And then once they're there, they can see, okay, I'm gonna transition over, and they can do that through their guild. So that it's and obviously it's player numbers as well. We want people to be in the ecosystem playing. It doesn't matter which game they're playing. It's another user for us, which is obviously a massive advantage. So I just wanted to make that clear. That's why free to play is so important for us. We can't not allow this massive demographic of crypto gamers to not even be able to try out our ecosystem.
And so I don't think I heard you cover it in there, but this next question was directly related to that. But will free to play earn part of this airdrop campaign?
Yes, they will. So I mentioned that briefly, but there is a small percentage that will go to free to play Illuvium Zero. And the idea is that that will be available about midway through the testnet phase, that where we can actually start acquiring users for free to play. But it's not a crazy amount. I don't want people to be like, oh my God, they're coming in stealing our airdrop. It's enough to entice them to look at the ecosystem and say, wow, what is here? Like, let's start playing Illuvium. It's a way for us to, tap into those markets that previously have just been a blockade because, do you have a PC? No, I don't. Can't play Illuvium. That can't be a thing. It's super, super, super important, not just for the guilds, but for everyone else out there that literally does not have access to a PC. We just have to have it.
Yep. I know a lot of people want to be playing on mobile. I want Overworld on a handheld.
Well, we are in the process of doing the tests for the mobile assets.
Oh, nice.
We originally had an outsourced studio looking at doing it, and we found that they were about 5 times slower than what we could do it internally. So we're doing a couple of tests at the moment on how good we can get the Illuvials to look being in mobile quality, and it's promising. So that it does take a while to convert the game to mobile, but the good thing is that maybe Overworld is going to take a bit longer, especially with us, working through the features that we're adding as well. I'd say that that's quite a long way off, although there is one mobile thing that we're hopefully able to do. I'm not sure if I'm able to talk about it, so I won't. But with the arena, the mechanics and the user interface are all like pretty much solved. So for us to go onto mobile, it actually will be a lot quicker, and 100% we want to get the game out to people on mobile as soon as possible. So it won't be open beta, but you can expect at least some test versions of Arena on mobile pretty soon after.
Good deal. Fun. All right. What is your progress in terms of balance between buildings and cost, research cost, and harvesting amount for Illuvium Zero, basically?
I would say ongoing, right? There's always going to be balance that needs to be done in these sort of games. It's not correct at the moment, but there's so many things that we're adding all the time, I think people need to remember that the most important thing to begin with is getting in all of the features. Even one tiny little feature being added can totally throw out balance. So we don't put a huge amount of time into that in the beginning, and then once we get all of the features, then we start to balance it. I think people have seen that Arena has gone from being not particularly balanced to being a lot better balanced recently, and even that we haven't put a lot of time and effort into. So it'll get better. Part of doing test versions of things and free to play versions of things is so that we can see how people play, see what people like, what they don't, and then we use that information to work out the balancing. So it's not a trivial aspect, but it's not something that we're panicking because it's not on point yet, because you add one more feature and it'll be thrown out all again. So
Will future airdrops benefit landholders that have held for several years?
I was just reading. Will the future airdrops benefit the landholders that have held for this? Yes. When you say the future airdrops, you mean the ones that we just announced, I'm assuming?
Yeah, or maybe they're wondering if there will be future airdrops.
I don't know that far in the future, but the ones currently, there will the time held and the amount spent will be the key factors
Oh,
there to how many were.
yeah, I guess this question was before they knew the airdrop details, so what they were wondering.
Right, right, got it.
Okay, head up here to Illuvium Beyond. Good on time still?
I'm good for another. I'm meant to meet with Annie after this at 12, but I'm sure he can stay up. Is Annie in here?
He
Give
was a
me a
second
thumbs
ago. Okay, well,
up.
it's getting pretty long. Maybe we'll have just a couple of questions.
yeah, just a couple more and then
I'm fine. If you want to drop off, I can answer the rest. It's all good.
Okay.
We haven't had one of these in a long time, so. But yeah, I can cover it. I know you.
yeah,
got a
I'm
shit ton.
fine too. Okay. Well, yeah, if you got to drop, Aaron, thank you for coming, giving everybody your insights. Like I said, we'll talk about scheduling another one too.
I'll try and answer one more. Is there a question?
Oh, here we go. This is Beyond related too. Are there any prospects for Beyond to have a free version of the game, or will it remain exclusively for players with finance? I think you kind of covered it in the beginning, but
Yeah. Yes, we can answer that pretty quickly. Yes, there are plans for free-to-play versions of Illuvium Beyond, at least when it comes to the card game version of it. The collection game, I don't think so. I think that would be a bit strange to be collecting sort of like cards that don't have a value and aren't NFTs. So probably the collection side of it will stay. You just have to buy cards, just like any other card game. But to play the actual game, yeah, we are planning on having free to play versions of it.
yep. All right. How long do you plan on keeping the Illuvium Beyond weekly reward structure? Will the amount of ILV rewards eventually decrease as ILV goes up? If ILV goes up?
So this can be decided by the council, and it'll go through the governance structure. But I would say no. Like what people sometimes forget is that if in actual value, there's been about 20 spent on Illuvium Beyond. Now, a big reason for that, I think, is the leaderboard rewards. So I don't think it would feel very nice if we were to take those away. But again, anything's possible. Anyone can write an IIP, and if it goes through the proper governance channels and people think that that makes sense, uh, great. But what I would say is a lot of that revenue is coming from those like top two. I think the last time I checked was like the top 250 people are spending about like 40% of the revenue. So if we make them dissatisfied, then I would be a little bit concerned with what happens with future waves. It's not a lot of ILV in the scheme of things. So yeah, but I mean, if things go crazy and all of a sudden ILV is worth a stupid amount of money, then yeah, we can always relook at things.
Yep. I finally got tossed off the leaderboard, so I'm going to have to go back on there. Set 1 of Beyond is set to conclude either later this year or next year. Would you expect set 2 to begin in mid-2025? And is this going to be an entirely new Illuvials or set 1 Illuvials with new backgrounds and expressions?
So there's a couple of parts of there. On the timing, yeah, I'd say that mid 2025 is about where we expect set 1 to start. Keeping in mind that set 2 is effectively something that carries across all of our games, right? It's not something that is just related to Beyond. It would also be something that would coincide with the sets changing in the other games as well. So for certain games, that means different things, and I'm not going to go into that now. But the general idea with what will be in there, number one, as we get towards the end of this set from a perspective of Beyond, we're going to do a retrospective and work out what worked, what didn't, and how can we improve it so that set 2 is even better. The really important thing to remember there is that set 1 can be a little bit, I guess, different to the rest of it, just purely from the perspective of it being unique. And, you only ever get one set 1 with whatever system that you're building. So if we do change either some of the mechanics or other parts of the systems, I think it won't be the end of the world. I'm one of those people that always loves to have everything planned out so that everything is like perfectly consistent. But in this case, I think we get a little bit of a pass to break some of the consistency if it means that we make a much, much better product. But set 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I think they all need to be very much like a particular way. As far as what's in it, the plan has always been that set 2 will be a mix of old Illuvials and new Illuvials. And what I mean by old is we have this concept of variations, which is where we would have an existing line, have some Illuvials come from it, but that are different in some way. So the examples that I've given in the past would be something like light Ramfire or dark Atlas, right? So it's still an Atlas in that sense, which would mean that it could be used inside of Arena as an Atlas, for example, but it would be something different. Pokemon do this all the time through things like, they've got the Gigantamax Pikachu and stuff like that. It's a way of letting new people have access to old classics, but in a different way, right? What it does mean is that there will only ever be one lot of original creatures that are part of that set 1. In fact, our metadata actually shows that. There's part of the metadata that talks about what variation of something it is, and everything in set 1 has got original tag to it, right? So that's literally what it's set up as to be. But then there could be like a dark Atlas or a light Atlas or evening at the improv Atlas. It doesn't matter. We can do whatever we want, but that will be combined with new Illuvials that we create. Just keep in mind that every new set of Illuvials is going to be significantly more effort to build. So from that perspective, we can't do another set which has 156 completely new creatures. Otherwise, it'll just take too long. We have many, many more things that we'd like the team to be working on. So it will be a bit smaller, but that does mean that there's a lot of interesting things that we can do to sort of flesh that out. But it does mean we have to do a little bit of a retrospective on especially something like Beyond to work out how we're going to make it better for the future.
All right. Are you?
I think that's I've got to head off now, guys. So thank you everyone for your time. I'm sure that Kieran will have you in good hands, and I'll catch you all later.
All right. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, man.
Cheers, bye.
Okay. Since the Beyond card game is no longer a secret, will we be able to see it for the end of the first set, or is it okay? Will we be able to see it before the end of the next set? I think Aaron mentioned it.
So there is no date for the card game. It's not even a finalized IIP, but there's obviously Johnny's pitch, which I think is really cool. But yeah, nothing set in stone. So almost no chance that it would be before the end of the first set.
I think they've only seen one Illuvial from set 2. I think, right? Chameleon.
Uh,
Chameleon.
yeah, well, maybe two. I can't remember the. I think Roger leaked another one. Well, there's got to be a spider.
I guess you're right. I guess you're right there. It's got to be a. I would love to hear what your concrete plans are to implement and connect Beyond to the rest. I think many people did spend money and have no clear idea what it will be good for.
So again, it eventually will have its own dedicated. That is, we don't know yet. Obviously, again, Johnny's pitch is out there, and we have the ability. My thoughts on that are: I definitely want a game built around Illuvitas. I think it would be a huge amount of fun. I've also spent a shit ton of money on Illuvitas, and I know what it would do to the value of them. But I also don't think it's the right move. And I've said this to Johnny openly to go out with another card game. I think something like a battle royale or like the Illuvicards or whatever we end up doing will be a little bit more exciting and new and fresh, and so that's my thoughts there. But yeah, more so definitely more waves, and eventually it will be turned into a card game. Maybe not even a card game, but you utilize Illuvitas. I don't know. That could actually be a way. Just thinking about it now, like you don't like obviously we can integrate and we are going to integrate Illuvials into everything, but I think it would be cool if we integrated like if the community says, you know what, Illuvium Beyond, we don't want to build a game for that, it's too niche, we could definitely integrate either like an arena game mode or some future game mode that utilizes Illuvitas to give them a little bit more utility than just your profile photo across the ecosystem. And I think that's pretty cool. That's like a kills two birds with one stone type thing. I've never really thought about it or spoken to anyone about it, but yeah, I think that would be awesome.
All right, next question. Somebody was mentioning that the Illuvidex has had some issues lately, and they're wondering what we're planning to fix it and what upgrades are going to come.
Yeah, so 100%. This one is is definitely fair. When you've got one of the co-founders literally using a third party marketplace more than our own, it's an issue. But some of the upgrades that are coming, a better filtering system, better analytics capability. There's
Carts,
introduction. Sorry.
cart, like the cart buying stuff. Ashta mentioned it.
Yep. Bulk item listing, multi-item cart. What else is there? Currently, there's only one item per signature. That's being changed. So you'll be able to put a whole bunch of stuff, which for those of you who like going and sweeping floors, I know Roger was doing that at one stage, buying atlases for like 1 cent or whatever. You can do that really easily. Uh, the web team is getting these features ready for open beta, so that's when we're looking to implement it. But definitely the analytics is getting overhauled as well. It needs a lot of improvements. So yeah, that's we get it. It's been something that's been neglected for a while now. There has been other important things, but now that we're getting to open beta and the Illuvidex fees are going to be such a core revenue stream to the DAO, even though we make it doesn't matter where someone trades on the Illuvidex or IMX or Token Trove or whatever, we still make our fee. It is important for us to have a marketplace because we know that the crypto space is quite scary, and if people trust Illuvium, then they're going to do their trading there. And if it's a shitty experience, then we're not helping them out. So definitely in the works.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't even think you mentioned like all the new UI and album stuff that's coming, the revamped ones.
Yes, that's going to be really cool as well.
Player progress and all that looks real good. So I think Roger leaked some of that, but
You'll be able to see your collection rewards for filling up an album, which will give you cosmetic bonuses and the different games. There's a ton of cool stuff coming.
all right. What are your thoughts about Wave 3 pricing?
Please, for the love of God, keep it the same.
I'm in the same boat. I thought it was pretty good this time around, personally.
So did I. I think it's great. Please keep it the same.
I mean, we kind of talked about this already, but have Illuvium's next few games, the IBG, been debated or decided upon?
Definitely not decided. The admin team has come together, and we like a battle royale for a few reasons. Obviously, the genre is extremely popular and has now remained stable for a long, long time, which is obviously a good sign. But also, there are a ton of elements in the battle royale that we can repurpose from like weapon systems, from armor, from environments, the Illuvials. Like it's actually pretty great. Like when I played the FPS that Andre made, I think Aaron was sort of beating around that topic, but Andre literally in a weekend went and made a multiplayer version, which was basically an FPS where we were to deplete their health wins. It's like it's pretty easy to see how that would turn into a super cool battle royale. Now, I mean, one person working on it for 2 days is nothing from a resource standpoint. If we were to build a team around the battle royale, I think we could do it pretty efficiently and quickly, which I think is super important for us to keep on pushing the envelope. Obviously, we need to continue building out the features of our existing games and do a lot of polish on them and receive feedback and work on that. But it's probably equally as important to start progress on a new game. And that's why I mentioned it in the roadmap. I would like us to start having that conversation with the DAO pretty soon. But yeah, from an admin standpoint, we like the Battle Royale.
I played the shooter that Jeremy killed. He didn't tell me first. All right. So next one is kind of on the crypto gaming market as a whole. What are your overall thoughts on Web3 gaming's progress since the last bull run, the bear market, quiet period? Do you see anyone else in the space that gets your competitive and creative juices flowing? Do you see Web3 bull market scenario again?
So yes, I definitely do. I think there's enough games. I think once we go live and people see that, like we cover three genres and we are launching three games that have been worked on for 3.5 years now. So I think people are underestimating just how big that is. There is still, in my opinion, no AAA games that are actually live and on chain. And so busting out 3 of them at the same time, I think that instigates a pretty big movement. But then there are a bunch of other games, not 2 or 3 in their suite, they're singular games, but it will start to build out a pretty good narrative. And I'm always very, very open with where my feelings are on like the Web3 space and gaming in general. I got quite negative about 12 months ago, where I was thinking, this is going to take way longer than expected. After I played the Overworld a couple of weeks ago, and you see the Illuvials roaming around, and thinking like, wow, this is actually pretty damn sweet. Like, looks so much better than Power World. It plays like, I don't want to hype it up because I just want people to go in and play, but that made me think, you know what? If people jump into this and they play Pokemon or Monster Hunter or whatever, they're gonna like it. They're really, really gonna like it. And then, as Aaron said, as you slowly integrate uh, new things that give them a little taste of what crypto gaming can offer, and you start, you say to someone, hey, you actually know you've got something worth 50 or $100 in your wallet that you've captured, like all of this kind of stuff. They go into the marketplace, they sell it. It's going to spark a very positive narrative that content creators are able to start pushing. And a few of these mainstream guys that come into the space and turn and say like, wow, actually now there are good games, and adoption could happen a lot quicker than what I initially thought. And I think the same once we decided to have the 8-player multiplayer that's completely free to play. And yes, you get benefits if you bring in Illuvials, but it's not a requirement. Then we're pretty much a direct competitor to TFT. You've got 2 games there, one that has 50 million players and the other one that has 100 million players across the 2 different genres that are completely free to play, amazing experiences. You start to go, fuck, I'm pretty bullish again, right? Like I'm feeling this. So I don't know, maybe my emotions down too much and I need to be a little bit more stable. But yeah, it feels like because we're getting closer, I'm like, the whole market is going to be lifted up once we launch.
No, I mean, like, even I've been telling people the past few days, just playing on testnet already gives you that different, like I got my daughter a game and I was playing that, and it feels like, like whatever I can play it, it's fun. But then once you get into the overworld, and even though the Illuvials are on testnet, like, you own that thing,
Yeah.
like it's in your wallet, it's completely different.
But also hunting the Illuvials, shooting the Illuvials. Like I tested, when we did that combat test, you're like, this is a game now. Like before, it's like, God, I'm taking me 10 minutes to get to anything. Now that that's not the case, like Overworld all of a sudden is like, boom, it's there, plus the added benefit of ownership. So that's one game. Then you've got like my favorite game to play, as everyone knows, is TFT. If we've got a direct competitor to TFT, none of this like 1v1 like, yes, that exists, and I shouldn't say bullshit because I know a lot of people on our team love that, but get us closer to that game that has mass adoption and mass success, and bring in our IP, and you've got a winner there. Then you got 2 of those at the same time launching. I can't help but get super, super excited.
Yeah.
Like, do you think about this, right? Like, just not to go on a tangent, even though I'm about to, but Team Liquid, when they were getting in, you were watching, they were playing the game, and it wasn't even like obviously the crypto side of it, people were like, oh, that's negative, blah blah blah. But I guarantee you, if that was a situation where it was an 8-play multiplayer, There didn't need to be a team builder, which isn't in this new multiplayer version. And you just click play, you get in the lobby, you get in, you get delivered cards to you from a shared deck. That that experience for Team Liquid would have been so much different. They would have just been like, it's the same awesome game, but it's newer characters and better looking characters and a better looking environment, right? But we didn't have that. And that's what pissed me off so much about it. Like, it was frustrating. Obviously, we went in the direction we did, and now we're looking to add this new mode, so it's fine. But I just think what would have been if we had presented that situation instead of more of a 1v1 competitive Hearthstone type game.
I think the new version will be good. I have high hopes. I gives me a better shot at winning than if I'm just playing one person, right? At least not getting last.
Exactly. But that's the thing, right? Like, how many people played played Arena Ascendant, lost, probably played one more time, lost again. In the middle of that, spent 40 minutes building their team, and then just went, fuck this. I'm not playing. Right? Like, versus you go into a multiplayer situation, you didn't spend any time in the team builder, and you came sixth. You beat two people. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, well, that was pretty sweet. There's a whole bunch more RNG that's added to it. So if all of a sudden you lose, you're not blaming the fact that you're an idiot. You're blaming your bad luck. And what's going to fix that? Playing another game, because then I'm going to get good luck eventually. So, I just think it's so much more appealing to the masses, which is what we need to do in this ecosystem. To start off with, we need to get the masses. Then we can start going into more niche genres and modes that really, really competitive people that are happy to spend that hour in the team builder, getting the best team possible. But the majority, in my opinion, I'm certainly in this camp, just want to finish their day and chuck on a game and not have to think too much, and hope they get a bit lucky. Like, that's what I think we need. So
I think it'll be good. Can't wait to test it. Aaron got my hopes high. Coming soon.
it actually is being built very, very fast.
Yeah. Like I said, I saw the UIs from Florian and they look good, so happy. All right. So I guess kind of related to that, with onboarding and such, will players have the capability of purchasing fuel, items off the marketplace, or some sort of in-game currency, such as ETH, using a credit card? If so,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so Passport has MoonPay integrated, so you'll be able to load with a credit card.
Yeah. Doesn't work everywhere, but it works. Works pretty well. So, see, I knew Fight for ETH was going to say immediately, not in Texas. But
No one cares about Fight for ETH.
All right. Well, let's I guess this is kind of a larger topic, but I know, or we can go with this one first and then we'll talk about the airdrop. But this is general player count on the ecosystem. So, is the number of players across all ecosystems what the team expected, or is it low or high? Expand on what you think is low or high.
Yeah, so I mean, we wanted about 100K. I think that would have been an ideal number. I think we launched, it was a little bit silly the way that we launched, and not having leaderboard rewards at the start, and not having things like a tutorial. It was a very steep learning curve. Uh, the team builder situation makes it a big barrier to entry, and so there was a lot of learnings from that. But then again, last month, or the last few months actually, we've had more monthly players slowly increasing, so we're at around 50K. So we're a ways off what we wanted, but it's still a decent base. And but I think the main point there is that Overworld has still been in private, and Zero is only accessible to people that have land. And I think the majority, all the polls that I've done over the years, all that I've had with people, the majority of people are excited about Overworld. I think that's more that casual experience that has the ability to earn people money and whatever like that is going to be the most popular. And then obviously with Zero opening up to free to play plus being accessible to the airdrop, I think we're going to see player numbers rapidly increase. And then obviously throwing on top this new multiplayer mode, which is much more catered to casual people, you sort of get an idea of, okay, if Overworld is not going to be boring anymore, and there's tons and tons of stuff to do, plus there's the ability to actually own your assets, that's going to go off. If they do create this mode where it's completely free to play and you don't have a team builder, it's not cumbersome, it's casual, there's RNG involved, there's a big chance that they're going to start taking market share from TFT. And then you almost know that the airdrop hunters will do whatever the fuck you tell them in terms of gaming in this space when it comes to making money. And that's where Zero free to play comes in. If you're just casually playing, you are going to earn some money. So I think we're going to get a lot of players from that. And when you bundle all of that together, it starts to create a pretty positive narrative if all things go well. Maybe I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about, but I feel like that puts us in a pretty good place.
Okay, so beta access stuff. Question is, those that have been around for years and been able to play in all the other betas, do we have a better chance at joining private beta 4? And
yes. Sorry.
I was just going to say, so like, I guess a lot of people want to know the answer to this question. Like, how can people get a better chance at getting into PB4?
Well, the bad news is you can't do anything now, but I've been hinting at this for a long time now. So the good news is if you have been an active player across Zero, Arena, and Overworld, you will give yourself a much better chance to get in. There, we're looking at 10,000 people to bring in over the month period, and we'll be choosing them over the next couple of weeks and then into that month as well. But yeah, the more you've played over the last few years, the better your chance to get in. The only thing I'll say there is make sure when you're signing up to your IMX passport that you use the same email that you did to play when you were previously logged in.
Looking forward to that too. Okay, we got a few more here. Illuvium has quite complex gameplay. Could less than simple gameplay turn off new players?
Yes, and that is the whole idea behind this casual mode. I think they're referring to the arena. The Overworld is self-explanatory. It's pretty similar to most creature capture games. But yes, we've already established that you need to be quite skilled. It's very competitive. This new casual mode is meant to be a lot more relaxed, and I think that's going to fit in nicely.
This was basically covered. Illuvium has impressive graphics, but as a result, high demands on your computer. Could this significantly affect the success of the game?
Yes, which is why we. I mean, when I say yes, I mean there's obviously millions and millions of people that have the ability to play our games on with the PCs and Macs that they have. But this is also why, as soon as we go from, as soon as we launch open beta, there's going to be a massive focus on mobile, and that's Overworld and Arena. So you'll be able to play all three games. Obviously, Overworld in a limited capacity, but you'll at least be able to play it, and it'll all be accessible on mobile.
From a Russian player, they said that we've already encountered blocking of various games. I think they're talking about like geofenced out, I guess. The guys paid for a game, but as a result, their access to the game was stopped. Does Illuvium have similar risk?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much that we can do about that. But the good thing is, if you've gone and spent a whole bunch of money and time on assets, you can always sell them. So if that happens, but I mean, I don't think that's going to be the case. In too many jurisdictions.
See a massive potential headache, which is the case for this no matter what. But when it's time to sum up crypto taxes, I'd like to play games without keeping a book or thinking about the tax side. Will there be some sort of API for summing up gaming taxes?
Look, I think that's something that we want to sort of. Games are about fun. Yes, there's the
Yeah.
potential to earn, but I don't know anything about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Just I'm gonna have a brain aneurysm just thinking about it. So, all right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up everything. If I didn't get to your question, it might have came in after I started putting this together, so I apologize. Oh, there's one down here. Do we have plans to support multilingual, like different languages in the future?
In the future, yes, but we're not working on it yet.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's good. You want to
And
try and
yes,
bring?
for the landholders, anything that wasn't answered, we can take it into the appropriate channels. We will do, as I said, I'm focused on it. We'll make sure that we get something for the landholders, and yeah, we'll work out the best solution moving forward as a entire community. And yeah, I'm sure it'll all work out.
Yep. Yeah. And like I said, this is all recorded. I'll get it posted up on Illuvium Plus channel if you missed some. Also, as I mentioned halfway through or multiple times, I'll make sure we get another town hall scheduled with hopefully Johnny and Aaron, maybe just Johnny, but about Illuvium Zero so we can get some more questions. I'll look at next week and a comfortable EU time for you folks. And yeah, thank you everybody for coming out. I think that about wraps it up. It'll be posted up in a few hours for everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich.
Yep. Thanks, Kieran. Talk to you guys later.
Yes, guys. Bye.